Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are listening from. Welcome to another conversation. My name is Richard A. Cross, and today we have as guest Dr. Rolundus Rice. And before we get into the questions or the conversation, I'm going to ask Dr. Rice to share with us something about himself so we can move on into the conversation.
Well, Dr. Cross, first of all, let me thank you for having me and let me commend you for the noble work that you are doing. You may be housed in Jeff City, but what your work will do will have ripples across the world. So I'm just anticipating people being able to see and feel and hear what you are doing with this magnificent project. But Rolundus Rice, a native of Atlanta, Georgia, I was born and reared in a single parent home. I was in church 3 days a week. I was able to have a strong support system despite being not having a father. And it was those lessons that I learned that have really influenced how I deal with young men who are in similarly situated scenarios. And so being a high school dropout to sit in the seat that I'm in is a testament to what a support system can do, but really what God can do too. So I don't ever, even in these environments, shy away from the fact that I'm a man of faith. And that is how I've been able to navigate the rigors of being a Black male in America. So I hope that gives a snapshot of who I am and what I've done. And hopefully we can engage in dialogue that further provides some clarity for you.
Yes, sir. Man, I appreciate that. As you said, having a foundation is important. And it's always good, man, because sharing that you're a man of faith, it helps to solidify the values that you stand on as you go forward on your journey. So we're not going to talk a lot about that part. I want to really get right into the questions. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
I think one has to have an indomitable will to win. And winning, whether we look at it in a sports context, football, basketball, baseball, and it was your president, John Mosley, who taught me what winning looked like across the academy. And one just has to have a feeling to not want to lose. There is nothing wrong with being a sore loser. And I'll tell you why. It doesn't feel good to lose. So I think when we can have a mentality that focuses on winning, and winning is subjective. Winning to me means lifting while I climb. That means being able to bring other men and women up as I'm able to climb to reach my destination. It allows others to do the same thing. But it's very difficult to be defeated in an ecosystem that was not designed for you to be successful. And I think when you understand those cultural dynamics, you know how to, and it's a game of chess. You know how to move and navigate in the system, again, that was not designed for your success. So for me, a will to win and not lose, and that can be tough when every time you make a step forward, it seems like so many factors are converging at one time to make you take 2 steps back. And that is a challenge or a reality that many men have to grapple with. And as a history professor, I'm keenly aware of those dynamics that started in the 1600s. And we don't have to have that discussion today, as it may not be the place for it. But when things are systemic, we must find a way to get around those things. And that's what winning looks like to me.
Man, that's powerful. I know you say you don't want to get to the systematic part of it, but hopefully we can get to touch on that later on in the conversation, because I believe it's important. Because I was looking on some of your work and I wanted to even ask, where do we go from here? And that's a part of what you just shared. But go to something that you shared last week, thereabout, to answer this question. As Black men, where do we go from here?
Dr. King wrote a book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, in 1967. It was published 1 year before he was killed. And I think that is such a profound saying, because when I was at Lincoln University, I invited Raphael Warnock to be the speaker. Wow. Before he was a U.S. Senator. Wow. And the theme of the King program was, where do we go from here? Chaos or community. And I do know that wherever we go, we can't go alone. And I think so often as men, I think it is ingrained in us to go at things solo. We don't need help. We don't need support. We shouldn't cry. We have to deal with it, suck it up, and move forward. But human beings are not necessarily designed that way all the time. At some point, as King said, the cup of endurance runs over and you need help. And I think when we realize that many shoulders help lighten the burden, then as a group, then I think we increase our chances of reaching the ultimate destination. Now, the path may be unsure, but the end is definite. So when you have a team of people around you, supporting you, pushing you, refusing to let you fail, that is how we go and move forward with whatever that ultimate destination is, whether that is navigating the rigors of a doctoral program, whether it is being promoted from assistant professor to full professor, whether it's going from being a rookie to a Hall of Famer. It's a process that no one can make it to that end by themselves. So again, building a system of people who will push you, support you, hold you accountable, but also at the same time realizing that whatever system or goal that you are trying to conquer or reach, you can never or should never be the smartest man in the room. And I think that's how you get to an ultimate destination of where we're going as a man or as a people.
That's really profound. There's a lot of things you can take from that, which you just said. We can't do this thing by ourselves. And I remember when I just started school here when I came from Jamaica to Lincoln, one speaker came to campus and he said, if you're the smartest person in your group, you need another group. And that is something that I'm learning right now, that there are a lot of people, and that's what really drives me to even start doing this, to be around people who have gone ahead of me, who I can learn from as I try to make my impact in the world. So, man, there's a lot that could be taken from that part. So, but I'm going to go into the next question because I want to see how much I can get covered here. What advice do you have for men listening on how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Well, I think it was Horace Mann Bond who said that we should be ashamed to die until we've made a difference in the world. Wow. And that is a powerful statement to make, that no matter how long you are here, you must make a difference. And I think that we measure our life's calling or purpose not necessarily in years. I mean, Alexander the Great conquered the known world by age 33. Wow. All right. Martin Luther King Jr. led a movement that had an impact across the world. He was only 26. Bobby Kennedy was appointed Attorney General at 35. So I think we have to, number one, understand why we are here. Now, sometimes we find our purpose, but sometimes our purpose finds us. Yes, and we have to be open to what we are seeing and hearing. For example, when new students come to Russ College, Dr. Cross, yes, I don't ask them what they want to do when they graduate. I ask them what problems do they wish to solve, because that hits it penetrates to the meaning of why they're here. And so we prepare them for that from the moment they arrive until they graduate. So life is so nimble, it's so fragile, and it's volatile. And so the time that we have here, every single second should be spent working toward that ultimate purpose. Like for me, I don't like going to sleep. When I eat, I stand up, because in my mind, I'm wasting time, man. I have work to do. The Isley Brothers had a song called I Got Work to Do. And when we realize that we all have work to do, it helps to lead and guide and direct us to our ultimate purpose. And to live in this life without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. You don't know where you're going. So I think sitting down, realizing to the purpose of your life, it helps to drive why you're here.
Man, thank you, man. Listeners, did you just hear what Dr. Rice said? Without a purpose, it's like we're going nowhere, and we need purpose. And I like the question you ask your students. I'm going to steal that one and make sure I ask the students, because it's important to know what problem do you want to solve. I normally ask especially when I'm meeting with the males on campus, I ask them what impact they want to make. not just here on campus, but in their community and stuff like that. So it ties close to what you ask your students. So I really appreciate that. So I'm going to go into the next question. But one thing I want to ask, what drive you? What make you make the decision to go into education?
Well, as a young Black man in Atlanta who dropped out of high school, I knew that I could always make a difference. But I'd never had a Black male teacher in nursery, elementary school. I didn't have my first Black male teacher until I was in high school. And his name was Mr. Darrell Adams. Mr. Adams taught history. And when I looked at my transcripts, I failed practically every single class with the exception of history.
Wow.
And it was that professor who went to Emory University before he taught at my high school. He made me understand and love history. So in my mind, I said, man, maybe one day I can have the same impact on other students as Mr. Adams had on me. Because coming from a family where I didn't have a father, sometimes boys take better from men who look like them. Why? Because we can't be what we can't see.
Yes, sir.
And when we see it, we can believe that we too can do the same things. And that was a driving force for me. And now, of course, I've been an assistant professor, associate professor, dean, and now the VP of Academic Affairs. I get to teach at the highest levels. Not only am I teaching students, but I get to teach faculty. I get to teach young faculty members every day. And education really means to teach from within. And so I have the best job in the world, man. If I were a wealthy man, I would do this job for free.
Yeah.
And that's what drives me, man, being to others what I didn't have. And I'm seeing the fruits of that labor because I see other young male students who are benefiting from sometimes just being in my office. I may not have to teach a class, but I can say, hey, man, you might want to not wear that to this event. Or I get to show students how to tie their ties because I didn't learn how to tie a tie until I was 28 because no one was there to teach me. It's those things that you may not always find in a textbook or a classroom that you can teach in our settings. And it's such a beautiful experience, man. I know you get to feel it every day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And man, I like the fact that you did it because you see the need. I know there's a drive right now for more Black men to be educators, but to tie into that question, I want to ask you, what was a pivotal moment in your life? I know Mr. Adams made an impact on you, but what other could you associate to be a pivotal moment in your life?
Well, I'll tell you, man, I was 20 years old. I was a high school dropout. And I was pulled over by the police. And I was driving a car that wasn't mine, but the car had a stolen tag. And again, it wasn't my car. And now I was guilty of speeding. I was going maybe 35 in a 20-mile-per-hour zone. And these three police officers, one police officer pulls up. He asked me to get out the car. I said, okay, I know I'm speeding, but should I get out the car when I'm just speeding? And the guy, he grabbed my face and shoved it into the trunk of a car. And this was May 30th of 2002 in Atlanta, so it was hot. So I could still feel the heat from that hot trunk on my face. And I had a cut because I was wearing glasses. And I said, man, this guy is treating me as if I'm not even a human being. And I vowed at that moment that I'll make my life matter. Now, this is before Trayvon Martin, Freddie Green, and so many others who lost their life with encounters with the police. So I found myself fortunate in that regard. But it was in that moment that I realized that this biological construct called race was a factor in me not realizing that I was a threat.
Wow.
And that is a daunting revelation, realizing that is the one thing about myself that I cannot change. If I had locks, I could cut my hair. If I had a crazy hairstyle, I could cut it. I can change how I talk. I can use proper language when I need to, but one thing I cannot change was the color of my skin. And when you realize that, you understand that I had to make different decisions, whether right or wrong or indifferent. I had to learn how to navigate in the space, again, that was not designed for me to be successful. And so it was that moment that pushed me to go to school, get my GED, while also at the same time I was recently kicked out of the house by my mom and dumped by my girlfriend on the same day. And so it was that month, a collection of things that really showed me I got to do something differently. And that's what propelled me on the path I've been on ever since that time.
Wow, that's inspiring, especially looking at you now, knowing that you actually even dropped out of high school and started your journey later than most. To be where you are now is a testament to what is possible. And I know the students really appreciate you being at the school, and anybody that you interact with, especially when they get to know your story, because that shows what is possible once you put your mind to it. So I want to ask this question, moving from the pivotal moment. What life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe is important and can benefit this current generation, especially our young Black males?
Number one, no matter how many degrees or plaques we have on the wall, we're always learning.
Yeah.
And we can always learn from people who do not have those same credentials. We can learn from the lady who serves lunch in the cafeteria. I remember Miss Cookie at Lincoln years ago. She since passed away, but she taught me something almost every day when I walked into it. And I was dean of a graduate school. Miss Cookie was taking money at the lunch counter, and she's teaching me something. I learned from lessons from people who cut the grass here at the college. I learned from the guys who sweep the pavement in the barbershop or at the gas station. I had to learn that despite what I learned in the textbook, somebody knows something I don't know. And I'll tell you, I was at a barbershop when I was in graduate school, and this older gentleman, he had been drinking, so he wasn't really in his right mind completely, but he was engaging in a debate with me. Here I'm thinking I just knew everything, right? He said, "Well, you're so smart, what do you do if you were in a car wreck with your son and both of you all are bleeding?" I said, "Man, I don't have a son." I'm getting snappy at this point. He said, "Well, just imagine if you did." And I said, "Oh, I'll stop the bleeding on my son. That's my boy." He said, "No, you fool." He said, "Because if you stop the bleeding on him, then you'll bleed out. Who's going to take care of you? So you got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of other people." And I remember that lesson because it has stuck with me since that time. I almost discounted this brother because what he looked like, what he sounded like, the fact that he didn't know a 5-syllable word, or he could not debate Socrates or Aristotle or Plato with me. Then I realized this guy just gave me very practical knowledge that I would not have had if it were not for that conversation. So just realizing that no matter how old we are, no matter how smart we are, somebody somewhere had to teach us something. And that's what keeps me open to other ideas, is knowing I can learn from anyone.
Yes, having an open mind is important. It's critical, especially as you say, we sometimes need those practical life lessons that we sometimes don't realize we need until we get it. And if we're not open, we're judgmental to people, we sometimes miss those opportunities to gain insight and perspective that can benefit us, even not just in that present moment, but later on our journey. So, and I really want to, but maybe as you said, maybe it's not the platform for it. I really want to talk to you about Black men in America and when it comes to race, but maybe because I know that's your platform, and just what insight that you can share that can benefit our young males today when it comes to race and how best to navigate their path as they continue on their journey.
Well, I'll tell you, it is very difficult living through the pain of being Black. And I've studied this in graduate school and have written about it in peer-reviewed forums. But man, it did not hit me till I had my son. And my son, my namesake, my baby boy, he just turned 3.
Wow.
Well, he'll be 4 this month. He started school today. And I saw this handsome little boy who's clueless about the world around him. He knows that his daddy loves him, that his mother loves him. He told me yesterday, he said, "Daddy, thank you for taking care of me." And to know that this handsome little boy who says sir and ma'am, please, and thank you will one day grow into a threat to society by virtue of the color of his skin. And despite the best teaching he has at home, despite the values that we give him at home, he has to live in a world that does not love him back. And as a father, seeing that your baby boy could be gunned down for no other reason than the color of his skin, that is a painful reality, Dr. Cross. And to prepare our sons, our nephews, our cousins to live in the world like that is an awesome responsibility. And so what we have to do is to instruct them as early as we can on how to navigate that he has to be smarter, better prepared, more well-read. You have to outthink those who want to do you harm. And that can be exhausting because as a Black man, we have to be exceptional just to have an opportunity, while others can be mediocre and rise to the very top. And that's a reality that many people don't know exists, regardless of where they go to school, what degrees they earn, or who they know. At the end of the day, when you have to check a box based on your race or ethnicity, that it matters. It matters with the accent in your voice. It matters with how your name is spelled. It matters if I call someone on the phone, they can tell I'm Black or not. Those things we cannot avoid. And I look at us as Black men as being extremophiles. An extremophile is an organism that can live in an inhospitable environment. That's a biology term. But we're like grass that grows through concrete. No matter what's heaped on top of us, we still find a way to grow despite the challenges that we have to deal with. And when we know those realities, then we're more prepared to deal with the pain and beauty of being Black in America. And it's up to us to ensure that those who come behind us, we prepare them for that. And I hope I answered your question.
Well, yes, you do. And because it's when I got here to United States, I realized the impact or the situations Black people have to deal with. Outside of America, we don't see that. We actually don't see a lot of Black people. Actually, most of the professional people we see are more white people. So you come thinking already that you are second class, if you should say that. So, and I also heard that you have to be twice as good, to get half of what everybody else gets. And to ingrain that in our mind, as you said, it can be exhausting. So I do appreciate what you share, because we have to realize that we have to do the work to get ahead. But we also, to go back to what you had said earlier, we have to get into the mindset of pulling others up whilst we go forward, because that's also going to help us to have a stronger force as we go forward. But before I ask my final question, I want to ask you, where can the listeners find you and help support your work to make a difference?
Well, I appreciate that. Visitors can, or listeners rather, can visit my website, www.thedapperdean.com. It has a video, a story of my life, and I think it has information to purchase my recent book on Hosea Williams, who was a lieutenant to Martin Luther King Jr. That book was published by the University of South Carolina Press. So hope that some folks will find some time to check out the website, and hopefully we can engage in other conversations with them.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, listeners, please, I will share the link as well, so you can go ahead and take a look at what Dr. Rice is doing outside of this conversation. He has done some great work, and he's making a tremendous impact, not only at his university, but across the country and across the world, because they have access to the work that he's doing. So my final question to you, what impact do you want to have on the world?
What a recent commentator said this, that a man dies twice: the date of his natural death and the date in which the last person speaks his name for the last time. Whether that's 20 years from the day I die, 30 years from the day I die, I don't know. But I want people to realize when I'm cold, stiff, and smelling in somebody's cemetery, that I stood for empowerment of everybody, but particularly those who grew up the way I did, who have a similar situation, who've had to deal with certain circumstances that I had to deal with as being a Black man in America. I want people to say that Rolundus Rice tried to help somebody without considering financial gain, power, or influence. Just Rolundus Rice saw potential in me, and he wanted to get the very best out of me so I can make a difference in my own community. And if I can do that, outside of my own home, then I think I've been a success. Because in the end, it's not the degrees we earn, the amount of money that we make, or the number of plaques on our walls. Did we help somebody else? Because in the end, in the very end, when somebody's escorting you out of the church or whatever religious house of worship that one engages in on that final day before we're laid to rest, I don't want anybody lying on me when they got to eulogize me, Dr. Cross. I don't want anybody to have to lie for me.
That's right.
Tell it the way I live. And that drives me every day, man. And I hope that people will see the sincerity and my conviction, just like yours, in lifting while we climb, because that's what I really think it's all about.
Yes, sir. And Dr. Rice, thank you. But to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you. I can't remember when I connected with you or via social media, but all I've seen, has been great things from you with your family, and the work that you're doing is admirable. So that's one of the reasons why I reach out to you, because especially for our next generation, they need to see, as you mentioned, themselves, and it's easier to become what you see. So if I can bring someone who is doing it, living it, being the example, it only make it easier for that person, because I'm not going to be able to reach everybody. What you said may resonate with somebody else. So we need to bring as many examples to the surface so more people can see what is possible through us. And so, Dr. Rice, I want to thank you again for being here and sharing your insight and perspective and knowledge, because it's needed. And the more we can do this, the more impact we'll have. Again, listeners, this is another conversation. If you haven't yet subscribed to the Black Male Impact, please do. More great conversations will be coming, and I can't wait to have those conversations and share them with you. Again, Dr. Rice, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cross. You're doing a wonderful job. Keep it up, sir.
Man, thank you. I appreciate it.